Welcome, superstar. Do you want to learn how to lead a fantastic group coaching program that retains clients and delivers results? Well, get ready, because that's what I'm going to be talking about. The holy grail of group coaching is retention. Once you figure out how to keep your clients, life gets so much better. I know this from personal experience because I started my group coaching program 9 years ago. And for the first 3 years, I didn't retain any of my clients. But over the last 6 years that I've been doggedly focused on retention, I figured out a thing or two. And now clients who finish their first year with me are much more likely, in fact, the majority of them by far, stay not just for 1 additional year, but enroll in a 2-year agreement. And those clients that reach the end of their 3rd year, the majority of them are now enrolling in another 2-year agreement. That's pretty good for this industry. Most coaches only keep their clients about 2 years on average. So what have I learned about retention? That's what we're going to get into right now. One of the most important things that I figured out the hard way is that you need to have great agreements with clients. And I'm not just talking about written and signed agreements, although those are part of it. I'm talking about all the agreements, the explicit agreements, like the ones that are in writing that they sign when they first sign up to work with you, and also implicit agreements, standards, boundaries, values. We want to make sure, number one, that everyone that we're bringing into the program is an aligned fit, that they're aligned with our values and standards, and that they have clarity on what the expectations are of them. One way to make those agreements super clear is to put them in writing, but it's not the only way. One of the ways that I maintain and elevate the culture consistently is by every so often having a conversation with my group all together about agreements, about what the standards of our culture are. If I notice something that's going a little bit off the rails, I don't ignore it. I don't pretend it didn't happen. I don't hope that it doesn't happen again. I come back to center and I have a conversation with the collective. We actually just had one of these conversations recently, and it always elevates the culture when I bring them back to here's what our values are, here's what our standards are, here's how we show up. And you know what else happens sometimes? Sometimes people leave. And I used to have a real problem with that because I would feel like, oh no, I'm losing a client. But now I found out that as I elevate standards, the people that don't align with those leave. But, and more importantly, the people who do align with that are much more likely to stay. What I learned the hard way is that when you let the culture erode and when you let bad apples operate without elevating the standards and boundaries, it will make great people leave. You might keep people who like to behave badly, but you will lose the people that you really want to keep. So I always recommend maintaining really solid agreements and very explicit boundaries and standards with your clients. The second thing that helps a culture last and really supports retention is to create a culture of accountability. Now, a culture of accountability means that instead of following the way that most culture goes in the world, which is finger pointing out, blaming, shaming, complaining, right? Always looking for someone to put the fault on for everything. This is how our media operates. This is how a lot of our culture operates. Instead, creating a culture, creating a standard in your culture where people look inward. People are always looking into themselves. How can I be more empowered in this situation? How can I take responsibility for this situation? I call it, in my culture, my inner circle, I call it a culture of radical responsibility, where we do the intellectual exercise of always asking, if I were to take 100% responsibility for whatever happened, what would that look like? I know what you're thinking, or what you might be thinking is that, wow, well, what happens when somebody actually does something wrong? Like, don't you correct them? Well, yeah, definitely people are held to account for the things they do. And I'm always modeling the behavior of looking inward, which actually I looked over here because that leads me to point number 3, which is in order to establish a culture of accountability, in order to be able to hold people to high standards and boundaries, you yourself need to be an embodied leader. What I mean by being an embodied leader is that you are walking your talk, that you are the very first one to turn that finger inward and say, how can I take radical responsibility for whatever just happened? Maybe you didn't set a good enough boundary or expectation up front. Maybe you enrolled a client that wasn't a right fit. Granted, you could point the finger at that client and say, you were a terrible fit, you messed everything up. Or you could take radical responsibility and say, that's on me for bringing that person in here. So what an embodied leader is someone who lives the message that they're preaching to others. And lack of embodied leadership is one of the biggest issues I see in the world around leadership, is people who are telling everyone else how they should be, but are not living in alignment with those values and standards. So this is huge, and it also leads me to the next one, which is your evolution and growth. A great leader is someone who's constantly learning and evolving. And in my opinion, and not a lot of coaches agree with this, living your evolution in front of your clients, like letting them see it. A lot of coaches feel like they need to be perfect, they need to be on a pedestal, clients can't see them sweat, they can't see them be vulnerable. And I used to be like that. That was back when I did not have retention. I had that sort of wall between me and my clients where it was like, well, I got to act like I've got all my what together, and I need to have all the answers, and I've got to look and seem and act perfect. That went out the window, and what I've realized is that people get a lot more value out of watching me have my own challenges and work through them live in front of them in a way that shows embodied leadership, right? Where I'm walking my talk, where I'm living the principles. The next thing that helps a culture last and has people really bond together, I've found, is to have a common language, to have ways of talking about things that are unique and that reflect the values of the culture. I'll give you a couple examples. Because we have a culture of accountability, because we take radical responsibility, when I hear someone say something like, I can't. So I'll give you an example. One of my favorite clients, she left me a voice note and basically said, hey, I can't make this meeting that I'm supposed to have with you. I just can't. I'm too busy. And so I can't. So I wrote her back, or I sent her a voice note back, and I was like, hey, listen, it's okay that you are not going to make it. And I invite you to consider changing the language of your message to me, because I noticed that in your message you said, I can't. And I invite you to find language that's more empowering around this decision that you're making not to attend the call. So of course she got it right away, because we have a culture of accountability. And she's like, oh my God, didn't even realize I did that. And she shifted the language to, listen, I'm choosing not to be on the call today because I have these other things that I'm going to make a priority instead. So now she has the language, I'm choosing, right, that helps her elevate her decision. Another piece of language that we use a lot in our culture, which you heard me use a minute ago, which is I invite you to consider. I have an agreement with my clients that I hold them as sovereign beings, and I don't tell them what to do. I don't should all over them, right? And so one of the ways that I show that and that I embody that belief is that I don't tell them what to do. Instead, I invite them to consider something, and then they have agency over whether they actually decide to do it or not do it. The last thing, which is not the last thing, because I just thought of a seventh thing that I'm going to add. The last thing, second to last thing, is a path to leadership. I've found that if you keep everybody year after year at the same level, eventually they'll get bored and they'll feel like, okay, I got what I needed, it's time for me to go. Whereas if you let people step into leadership in your community and you give them roles and opportunities to be witnessed, to be seen as leaders, they're much more likely to stay. And so I believe it's a very good practice to create some sort of structure of ascension where people can ascend into those leadership paths. What I do in my culture, in my group, is that I invite people as they stay longer to help me in delivering the foundational business breakthrough program. They come in as volunteers and they might lead a mastermind group, or they might do one-on-ones with people to help them develop their business plans, but only in the areas, of course, that they've exhibited mastery. So path to leadership. And then the last one that I'm going to add that I think is really powerful is group experiences. So what I'm talking about here are live experiences. So this is where we gather in person and we spend a few days together, and I lead a multi-day journey with a theme. So our most recent group experience was called Opening to Abundance. I recognize the opportunity in the culture to elevate mindset around abundance, that I was witnessing certain scarcity thinking in the culture, and that I wanted to really help people recognize it, become aware of it. So we had a 4-5 day almost program where we just focused on the practices of abundance. And that creates a lot of depth and a lot of deep connection with people that makes them want to stay in the culture for year after year. So those are my 7 favorite ways to deepen culture and to develop a group coaching community that's effective and also that drives retention. If you're looking to elevate your group coaching program and in your culture, really, let's connect. You can find out more about working with me, my offerings at superstaractivator.com/go.